remarkable new biography of Vincent van Gogh, whose paintings have long been among the most popular great paintings in the world, except, sadly enough, when Van Gogh was alive. He only sold one of his works during his brief but prodigious lifetime. Australian director Paul Cox does a superb job of recreating Van Gogh's life, mixing film of the places where Van Gogh painted with his own words in confessional letters to his younger brother Theo, read in narration. Initially, Van Gogh wanted to be a member of the clergy. When he doesn't qualify, he is crushed.
My dear brother, the 3 months' probation have elapsed. They have told me that I cannot attend the school on the same conditions as the native Flemish pupils. It would not be easy to live without faith in God.
He then throws himself into painting as director Cox tries to recreate the images that Van Gogh might have seen as were taken to his actual locations.
For several reasons, I made up my mind to go home for a while. Drenthe is splendid, but one's being able to stay there depends on whether one is able to stand the loneliness. I am sick at heart about the fact that coming back after a 2-year absence, though the welcome home was kind and cordial in every respect, basically there has been no change whatever.
The question of Van Gogh's sanity is always raised in discussions of his work. What emerges here is that he was above all else a morally driven man with high ideals who constantly questioned himself.
The best we can do is to make fun of our petty griefs and, in a way, of the great griefs of human life, too. I kept myself going on coffee and alcohol, I admit all that. But all the same, it is true that to attain the high yellow note I obtained last summer, I really had to be pretty well keyed up.
Of course, riding above everything else are the paintings. But this film does something else in addition to giving us just the pictures of Van Gogh. It also inspires us to look more closely at what is in front of us. It inspires us to develop an artist's eye and sensibility, and that makes the movie Vincent very great indeed. When we're taking a look at the trees and the olive trees in particular, and I saw that in this film, I said to myself, why don't I see that? I can see it now, thanks to the director, thanks to Van Gogh, and the director thanks to Van Gogh as well for inspiration. Why can't I see that? And I should look more closely at what is in front of me.
This is one of the best movies I've ever seen about painting.
Absolutely.
I think the director, Paul Cox, has a director's eye, a visual eye for this material, and he's able to make this movie on a very visual level. When the narration is read by John Hurt, he's reading the letters that Van Gogh wrote about his own work, and who knows more about Van Gogh than Van Gogh did. Right. So when he's talking about a particular kind of brushstroke, we are looking at a big close-up, not only of that kind of brushstroke, but there are times when you feel you're almost looking at the very brushstroke that Van Gogh was writing about. It's as if Van Gogh himself were taking you through these paintings, layer by layer and stroke by stroke, and version by version, and explaining to you what he was developing, what he was moving toward. Well, it's a fascinating movie.
Well, when he talks about finding a new yellow, now that's a thrilling thing. I mean, if you love painting, it's thrilling to hear him talk about it, that this was not a man who was terminally sad at all times. He was excited about his work. He was questioning. The film does not, breaks ground in terms of not having us think that this was just a nutty man, and that's how all great artists are. The lust for life notion helped create the notion that you had to be crazy to be an artist. And I think that here we see that you have to be fiercely proud of what you're doing and trying to do your best to do great art.
And there's another thing I like about what Paul Cox does. It's not just show and tell, where he painted an olive tree and then here's a picture of an olive tree. What Cox does with his reality, when he shows real things in the world, is he arranges them in such a way that it's not that we're able to see what Van Gogh painted, we're able to see how he saw what he painted.
More thumbs up for the exceptional film Vincent, which accomplishes almost the unthinkable. In its own way, it's exciting as one of Van Gogh's paintings.